Hey guys, it's me again, Peter, co-founder and CEO here at BlueAlpha, and I'm back actually with another tutorial. And this time it is about TikTok. So we just released our TikTok MCP, and we also added an additional 9 skills to our BlueAlpha marketing plugin. If you want to learn how to install your BlueAlpha marketing plugin in this entire tutorial that we're publishing here, you can also read up on the instructions. It's pretty straightforward. If you connect it via the CLI, my bad, then you can just download the plugin immediately. Otherwise, you can go to our open source GitHub repo, click on the latest release and download the plugin, and then just drop it into your Cowork and say install this plugin. And then you're not just having all the TikTok skills, but we also have an MCP and a Google Ads MCP, and have built out 10 skills for each that you can actually use. And in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we're going to release a Meta MCP as well as a LinkedIn and an X one. And then we'll also have a full tutorial about each of the individual skills. What I want to show you right now is how we actually use that skill, or the different skills from the BlueAlpha marketing plugin for an actual real account, because we don't, all the previous ones I actually showed you on our own BlueAlpha account, but we don't run any TikTok campaigns. So I'm actually showing you on a client account where I changed obviously the campaign naming and as well as the spend, but all of the insights are actually real. And what we have here, this is like a real D2C fintech client of ours, and we have in total 9 skills, but I'm actually going to run you through 3 of them so you get the idea and the gist of it, which is the auto optimize skill, the audience intelligence, and the creative fatigue watchdog. The auto optimize is a full TikTok account optimization run, and the audience intelligence is actually an audience report driven demo DMA or placement tiering analysis. And on the creative fatigue watchdog, we actually look into the whole cold completion CTR decay detection and have a specific skill built out for this. So jumping right in, this company called FinTechCo from May 9th teams actually spent around 80,000 over the last 7 days, has 5 active campaigns, and the total budget is around 11,000. And we actually believe that there's roughly 1,000 left on the table, right? This is a mobile fintech application, so that's where we actually have iOS app installed as well as Android. And it has 2 conversion events, which is completing a tutorial and an in-app order, for example. Then we actually have platform CPAs obviously understand it, because relative due to the SKAdNetwork attribution gaps. For this is they're using one of the other MMPs that are out there. But starting with phase 1, which is looking into the structural scorecard. So we have the different campaign names and then a specific score that has been assigned to them, as well as an automation category and the key issues that each of these campaigns have. Starting from the top, we have CT Alpha, which has a score of 76 to 100, where we actually see that the manual, or the key issue is the manual bidding at 3,455.6 per day scale. There's some other issues on manual overbidding for the CT beta campaign, but the checkout campaign and the creative test campaign actually have a very high score, and the tier that they fall into in terms of actual automation or next step is still tuning it a little bit as well. Besides only creative test, which should scale, it's 6-day old, so it actually is obviously still learning, and that's why it's in the scaling phase. And then we have the pacing and underspend diagnosis of the individual ones, and we see that CT Alpha is actually healthy, checkout is mildly underspending, beta is healthy, creative test is still within the learning phase, and checkout is also a mild underspend. One root cause that was identified is that both checkout ad groups or ad group status review partially approved, which means that TikTok's credit industry policy restricts Pangle / Lemonade inventory, and TikTok native replacement is unaffected, and that the fix is actually removed as Pangle Lemonade from both ad groups, which could actually give us or recover $981 per day, which yield or have like 360K in annualized budget. So in phase 3, we actually look into a budget relocation and CPAs compared within event type only. So it's complete tutorial and checkout, our different funnel stages with structurally different costs, right? So we're actually, if we look at budget allocation, keeping those in mind, which is great because otherwise you just not compare apples to apples. What we're finding here is that it should actually scale the CT alpha campaign by roughly like 30% increase, because the CPA is actually one of the cheapest with only like 30 compared to all of the other compares obviously of the creative test, which is still learning. And then on the campaigns that are optimizing for checkout, we should actually start to optimize the checkout one campaign because it has most of the spend with almost like a 3x CPA compared to like the C2 alpha, but obviously again, different event types. So phase 4 is creative health shot of understanding actually which of the creatives works the best. If we look at this, we have almost 6,655 unique ads in the system, 35 account for 90% of active spend, and the top 5 concentration is around 31% of 14-day spend within a healthy range. This creative clip 142, obviously these are not the actual names, but we changed all of this, has the high or like the best CPA in the account. Then we have also the studio cut, which also has a strong hold rate. And then we have studio cut 565, which looks like is actually like 7 months also. We should potentially monitor this for decay. And then we're definitely seeing here critical hook decay on the studio cut 026 with a hook rate of only 3.1%. So we should flag this for refresh, as well as creative clip 1089, which has an extremely high CPA, which is like 2.7x than the account median. We should definitely pause this now. Looking into phase 6, which is a risk tiered action plan, we see, yes, stop this 1089 creative asset, which saves us $125 per day. And then we should remove the Pangle lemon for both the checkout ad groups, and then actually flag the studio cut for creative fatigue watchdog, which we're also going to run in a second. Then there's like medium risk, which we should implement later this week, which is actually scaling this one particular campaign, right? And then hold the iOS creative test budget through May 25. And if I'm not mistaken, this like creative test campaign is literally their test campaign that they use where they first test different creative and campaigns before they actually then go live with them. And there's also like a bucket which is like more needs discussion and high risk in the line before actually touching, which is like upgrade your iOS CT manual bidding probably to like Smart Plus, right? Which would mean that there's a full learning reset on the account's highest volume campaign, and that this would probably lead to like 7 to 14 days dip. And we should probably wait until budget scale stabilizes on this. Same for the CT beta campaign. And then we should investigate into the past $45 CPA campaign, because there was actually not an actual reason that we saw on the account. Great. So then what else? We ran the auto optimize skill. Moving forward, we actually then triggered the creative fatigue FinTalk for the FinTechCo, which is obviously a wrong name. It analyzed 14 creatives, total spend of like 56,000 over the last 14 days. Found around like 2,100 high tier ads that are potentially wasted, and gives us this severity scorecard in terms of what is like high, moderate, and like healthy, and also whether we have like insufficient spend. And what I found here is that across all of these different creatives, creative clip 142 actually performs incredibly well. And then the further we go down, we see our 1089 again. We see another one which is 1134, 0226 as well. And then also it performs a trend analysis over the prior 14 days comparison, where we're actually seeing that creative clip 705 increased their percentage points in hook hold completion, as well as a small increase in CPM, but a decrease actually in CPA, which is like improving. And then we have like some other creative assets that are starting to like fatigue. And this is the refresh queue prioritized by wasted spend, actually ranking the creative clip 1089 as third and putting 026 and 443 4, because there is actually quite some significant spend happening in those two creatives over the last 14 days. And then also creates like a healthy creative profile, what survivors, for example, share. And the 6 healthy creators share a clear pattern, use this as a brief for new variants. So that's very interesting, of like not just showing you this is working, this is not working, but now actually starting to analyze why. And if we look at this, is they all have creative style UGC, right? As well, they have a good conversion efficiency, so around like 4150, as well as a good hold rate of 9.9%. And again, here going a bit more into UGC creative facing camera, first to second, problem led, and then 3-5 variants per ad group. And we can actually then hand this off, for example, to the TikTok refresh skill later on, which we also have in our like skill repertoire. And then it also starts to give you, for example, that this specific creative clip is your creative benchmark with like 55.6 hook rate, 51% hold rate, and a 41.50 CPA, best in account across all 3 signal layers. Brief your next creative batch around this, which is super interesting. If I would ask more questions, I could probably be able to actually pull that individual creative as well within Claude, but we'll hold off on that for now. Then we actually wanted to run the audience intelligence skill as well. Ran everything on the iOS app account, full account scope. As I mentioned, we also have an MMM MCP, but we're actually not connecting this right now. But if you, for example, do have an MMM, or all of our clients that we work with, they have an MMM, you can also actually chat to your MMM data on top of your Google, TikTok, LinkedIn, Meta Ads data as well. So it becomes like super powerful, because it actually helps you understand what is the high level, super causal strong measurement of the MMM saying, but like sometimes inactionable, because like it operates on certain like groupings, right? So for example, TikTok prospecting, but now you can use that insight actually of spend actually more money on TikTok prospecting combined with the TikTok MCP of like, hey, all of these campaigns roll up into TikTok prospecting. Let's start to analyze this, and what can I actually like optimize here in order to even drive more incrementality, instead of just having the pure like campaign where the incremental impact we can actually not determine, because it's platform reported metrics and they will measure in their own ecosystem, right? So we actually never know the true incrementality, and that's where an MMM and or together with incrementality testing is just extremely powerful. So moving on to the audience intelligence deep dive, is spend a bunch of money across all of the campaigns. These numbers, again, we had to like obviously change them, right? So that's where you see different numbers. We identified 2 gold segments in terms of like audiences, which are like male 18 to 24 and 25 to 34. It actually, in their case, it makes a lot of sense. FinTech mobile application, where you can, for example, like in the cash space. So that makes a lot of sense. There's like cut tier weekly waste that is happening across the audiences, which is especially the 45 plus segment. We should potentially looking into that. And then we're also looking at the iOS SKAdNetwork attribution split, where it seems it only captures like 19.6%. But this is like probably captured by the MMP as well. And then we actually look at the demographic tier map device attributed only. And what we actually see here is that the audience is male 45 to 55, as well as male 55 plus, and basically the same also for females, is performing very poorly and should actually be cut immediately. And that especially for young males and females, there's a strong or like a way better CPA. So yes, as it says, cut tier wasted spend. Then next to just the audience that is actually hitting, we can even look into the different DMA performance and help them understand across which DMAs or regions this is actually performing well. Interestingly here, it seems to be not actually like a regional split. Or I don't know, those are the top 10 by CPA efficiency. The top 10 DMAs. in a follow-up question, you could, for example, ask, are there any like bottom regions that I should like seriously consider cutting, or they're all, for example, within like feasible CPA and like CTR range, or like almost sure like a distribution of this. But I think this is more for like a follow-up analysis where you ask plot the distribution of CPA and, for example, CTR, where each DMA market is like a record, and then understand, are there any strong outliers that you should potentially like exclude from your targeting or not. And then we can also look into placement, right? And what connection type they, for example, sit in. This specific case is like Wi-Fi, what are the access versus Wi-Fi, 5G, 4G, 2G, and then also unknown. I think what's interesting here is there's a lot of unknowns, right? And that's why CPA is like super low, and this is probably due to the missing MMP. Then interest categories, smart clusters distributing evenly, no single interest outperforms. Okay, that makes sense because it's just the bidding algorithm. And then we can look into recommended changes of like what should we auto approve, which is like exactly the exclusion of these different age groups, right? No actions needed on placement. And then it also tells us like, again, recommended actions, which are increase the budget weight on male 25 to 35. I think what we could do is once we free up this budget here, that this automatically either gets redistributed across all the other audiences that we have, or particularly we're actually like starting to allocate more money to this audience, which might mean that we need to create a new campaign. Also says create a New York City and Chicago dedicated ad group split for creative testing. Both are gold DMAs with high volume. Isolating them lets you feed the best creative to the best market. Interesting. This could also be a case for incrementality testing, right? Of actually trying to isolate the like strong, like understanding whether these markets are actually the strongest performers. Potentially adding a Wi-Fi preference, I would probably push back a little bit on that one because we have just this high volume of like unknown. What needs discussion is actually age exclusion on Smart Plus campaigns requires re-entering learning phase and scheduled for a low week spend. So that is a very valid concern that we should definitely take into account, and that the attribution completeness is only 20%. Before actually acting on any exclusions, we should run a geosplit incrementality test on all of the segments to actually make sure that we're capturing all of it. Cool. Don't mind all of these tutorials here because obviously I had to run it first with our like BlueAlpha MCP and then alter the data so I can actually present this to you. But those are like real insights from a real client with just different naming and like slightly scrambled numbers as well. And I really hope this was helpful, and you get to use all of the other skills that we created and actually create more skills on top of that to become the AI marketer of the future. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you.